How's it going? This is Keanu Yamamoto with the Coachers Podcast, sitting here with Coach Andy Jackson from Dallas, Oregon. Coach, please introduce yourself, take it over, talk about your progression, family background.
All right, thanks for having me on. So I've grown up in this really my whole life. So the day I was born, my dad was a head football coach. He's actually coaching with me now. He was a head football coach for 35 years, coached wrestling as well. So growing up, I was just around it all the time. My mom was a teacher. My sister now is a high school principal. My brother was a teacher and coach. He's now a financial advisor. But really, we just grew up in this, and I loved it. I loved being around a team. And I just loved everything that came with it. And I'm a competitor, so I just loved that idea of, trying to overcome challenges and to get better at whatever sport it was we were doing or just being a good person. And so that's kind of my beginning into it. I went to high school in Portland at Madison, which is now called McDaniel. I thought that was a great experience for me. I grew up in a small town, so then going to high school there, we had 35 different languages spoken at the school. And so that was just a great experience for me to see the world more and to see different backgrounds, cultures, and watch how cool it was when all these different people from different backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures coming together, working for one common goal. Fortunately, I was able to get an opportunity to go play football at Western Oregon. I initially was going to be a wrestler, so that's where I was getting recruited out, was wrestling in high school. And then just that grind of every year, working your tail off, getting down to weight and all that. As time went on, I just wasn't quite having as much fun with it. In my later years of high school, it was basically win at all costs. Win a state title or you feel like everything's for nothing. And during that time, I was fortunate enough to have a great high school season my senior year in football. So I got an opportunity to go to Western, got to play under Arn Ferguson, who's just a phenomenal coach. He's been so pivotal in my career, in my path. And he had such a great way of pressing my buttons to get the most out of me. After Western, I got an opportunity to go play overseas. So I went to Austria and played in the European League.
Yeah, how long did you do that for?
So I was originally going to do it for 3 years, but as I went on in my first year, I broke a rib right over my liver during that first season. And I hadn't had a broken bone, hadn't had many injuries before. So I had to sit out a little bit during that time. And I kind of got homesick. My wife was my girlfriend at the time, and I just didn't feel like it was fair to her, and I didn't want to lose her. So after one season, I made the decision to come back home, and that's when I started coaching. So I came home, got my master's degree, started helping my dad out, and then my dad became the head coach at Dallas, and so I went with him to be the D coordinator and do my student teaching here. And when I got there, I absolutely fell in love with it. I've been here for 12 years, which is the longest I've been anywhere in my life. With the dad as a head coach, it felt like every 5 or 6 years we were moving. He had a very interesting path as a head coach. So he was one that took over poor programs and rebuilt them. So every job he took when I was growing up was a team that was 0-18 or, just some ridiculous losing streak. And he had to come in and completely change the culture, the way they do everything, and found ways to be successful. He had a different approach schematically, but I think it really helped him. And that's why I bought into the idea of being different than other people and not having the cookie cutter approach on offense and defense, doing things that are unconventional, because I really felt like watching that grow up, it gave his teams and my teams opportunity to be successful with maybe not your traditional high school football player, So that's kind of how I came to that, and I fell in love with Dallas. I wasn't a huge fan of moving around growing up, so it was really important to me that when I became a coach and a teacher that I went in on one place and made that my home and embrace that and have my family come up through that. Dallas has just been such an awesome experience. Such a great town, great kids, great families. You go to a football game on Friday night in Dallas and it is absolutely packed out for a small town. So we are kind of getting that experience to live that old school football town, where everybody's at the games and the student sections are wild, and not a big school, but man, everyone shows up on Friday night to support our kids, so it's pretty special.
That's awesome. Kind of similar path to you. I went out and played in Germany for a year. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
But same thing with you. Team called Straubing Spiders. It was a GFL 2 team out there when I played.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but in the same boat as you. They don't want to lose. They don't want to lose the wife. So right when I got back, got engaged and settled down and got married, and now we got a little beautiful family.
That's awesome.
But can you talk a little bit about just the dynamics? Obviously, worked for your dad a long time, and now Pops works underneath you. So talk to me a little bit about dynamics. If you try to ask Pop something to do, does he ever talk back to you? What's that look
No,
like?
absolutely not. So I probably gave him some hard time when I was an assistant under him, coming right out of playing, thinking I knew everything, But I do believe I did a really good job for him as an assistant coach, as a D coordinator for him. But, that was a lot of learning. Like, there was times I probably stepped out of line because he's my dad. Spoke too freely about things or maybe wasn't always the best assistant. But as far as just, I'd voice my opinion a lot, when it wasn't always necessary. As an assistant, my dad has been absolutely phenomenal for me. So he's not a guy that I get to have every day because he lives far away. So my mom and him come into town and watch my kids one day a week. And so I get to have him usually 2 practices a week and then Friday night games. And something I really value that he brings to the table is because of his experience and just seen so many different things in all the years that he's coached different sports. And I love having him talk to our group. That's something that I get the most out of him with. It's tough to give him positional groups, when he's not there every day, right? So what he really brings to the table is wisdom. He's a big relationship guy, and I've taken all that from him. And he just does a great job of talking with kids and just having another voice that I truly value and our other coaches value. A lot of my assistants were his assistants. So we've been fortunate at Dallas to have great coaches, just awesome assistant coaches. And about 5 of them have been with us since my dad was a head coach. We didn't really change a lot in our program when I took over as far as the culture of it and what we were trying to get accomplished. I put my tweak on things and made it mine, but a lot of my philosophy comes from him. So, and like I said, having great assistants that are on board with writing for the brand, for Dallas football, bleeding black and orange, where that's what's most important. Not what they can get out of it, but like truly being a great assistant coach. And we just have some really good ones.
You mentioned that wrestling was big for you growing up, and now you're coaching wrestling as well. Can you kind of talk to us about, you experienced it and you're currently in it, but kind of some of the traits and intangibles that a football player can get or benefit from wrestling?
Well, obviously, in my opinion, I truly believe wrestling is the toughest sport. You're out there in front of everybody in a dogfight. You're in a very vulnerable situation, right? And so I truly value that and how it helps kids grow. Putting yourself out there is not easy in wrestling, and you got to be tough. And you got to grind, and you got to really get down and dirty and put yourself in some really tough spots to really improve at that sport. And so that's kind of something that I really valued as a wrestler, is I really felt like it helped me grow as a person. It helped me overcome obstacles because, there was a lot of obstacles in wrestling. You're getting down to weight, just grinding through practices and, to get better at like any sport, you have to wrestle people better than you, right? So putting yourself in positions to get beat, and that's really where I truly believe that growth happened for me. And as far as the fundamentals of wrestling in football, it's hand fighting. It's using hands, using angles, things like that are transferable between both sports. And we have a pretty unique approach in Dallas, in that our football and wrestling programs work together. So we have, I believe, 7 or 8 of our assistants coach both sports. So that is huge for us. It's absolutely huge for us. And we've seen kind of football and wrestling in our town like really kind of merge together. And we're working for each other. We have tons of the same kids where basically a ton of our football players are wrestlers. And if you go to a wrestling match, most of those kids play football. And so it gives us as coaches more time to be with those kids as well, to develop relationships. And really, at the root of any sport or coaching, it's all relationship-based, And if a kid knows how much you care about them, they'll run through a wall for you, So I really, really value that stuff. But, I'm in a great spot. I don't know that there's a better place to coach football and wrestling at the high school level than Dallas. Both sports were competing at a really high level. And, we take a ton of pride in that. And we've had some really, really good kids and experiences through those 2 sports, that I've been fortunate enough to be around. So
yeah, you talked about when you're wrestling, just being able to put yourself out there and be vulnerable, to win and to lose and to fail. So one of the questions I asked Coach Vaughn, which when it released his episode on Saturday, was, Do you think there's that drive, especially in wrestling, I guess all sports, do you think that drive, more so for the guys that you coach or for you personally, was to not fail, or do you think that drive was to want to succeed above others?
That's a great question. So a lot of my approach when I was growing up with it was I wanted to prove I was the best. I have a chip on my shoulder as a person, and I loved the idea of going out, and I know this sounds kind of bad, but physically manhandling somebody in front of people. I loved that. But, I just feel like it was something that you don't ever want to fear failure too much. But as a kid, it's easy, right? It's easy to worry about failure. It wasn't really till I got older that realized that for me to truly reach like my fullest potential, like I had to throw the idea of fear of failure out and understand how important that is for growth. As a kid, it's not easy to understand that. As a coach, it's easier, but still, you don't want to go out and fail. However, our best learning experiences and our best growth as a program has been through, sometimes tough losses. And I embrace that. You hate going through it, but I truly believe that adversity and that putting yourself in a position where you do fail and everybody sees it, can be so vital for growth of a human being. So I hope I answered that the right way. I'm not.
No, that's good. That's good. I don't think there's a wrong way to answer it. That's a good take. Why do you coach?
Well, I'm a team guy. I grew up in a team environment. I loved being involved in something that was bigger than me. I felt like it was huge for me growing as a person to understand that you have to be unselfish. You've got to be willing to put yourself out there for the greater good of the group. And so in the society that we live in now, which is obviously based on everybody wants, what are they going to get out of this? What can I get out of this? I truly believe for young men growing up that being involved in sports is so critical to their development and understanding that you're going to go through adversity all the time, and that's going to happen to you in life. And we talk to our kids all the time about that. But B, you have to be unselfish. You're going to be a dad one day. You're going to work for somebody someday, and you're going to have to do what's for the greater good of everybody. And so I truly believe that sports are just such a great tool for teaching those things, if done properly. If that in your culture is something you emphasize all the time, being unselfish and caring about the people next to you more than about yourself, I think kids get a ton out of that experience. And then the other thing is I'm a competitor. I love competing in whatever it is, and I just love the idea that I could be thrown some challenges and obstacles as an adult and compete still in the sports that I loved. Obviously, I'm not the one playing the game, but it's so much fun preparing, trying to improve, trying to overcome obstacles. It's just, I think it's a great way for kids, young men specifically, to learn how to be a young man and to understand the things that are going to help you be successful in life and not so worried about, hey, what am I going to get out of this? How many times am I going to touch the ball or whatever, So I think it's a great tool specifically in this generation where now everybody's worried about themselves.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about how you yourself and your pops always took kind of a non-traditional approach from a schematic standpoint. Can you kind of touch on that for me?
Yeah. So as a kid, I didn't always kind of get this, but part of my dad taking over programs that hadn't been strong, maybe didn't have the best traditional looking football player. He was really ahead of his time and that he was doing things differently schematically. And so I grew up and we were under center double wing, old school smash mouth football, right? And it gave our kids an ability to be successful. That maybe we have linemen that are 180 pounds, maybe not the most athletic or fastest backs, but we were really hard to prepare for. And I realized that we were scoring points that we probably shouldn't have scored on teams that were much better than we were, just because we were doing things differently and they weren't quite sure how to prepare for us. And so something I learned in college is you can manipulate offense and defense formations, alignments, things like that. And so I loved the idea of being unconventional with our offense in the double wing. And I loved the power game, the counter game, the bootlegs. I loved all that. But what I found is that if we only lined up in one formation, we were putting them in an easier position to prepare for us all week. And we weren't maybe getting the matchups we could get. So we've kind of taken that approach and evolved. We still have the exact same run game. We were on power, counter, buck sweep, jet, trap. But then we started expanding formations when I became the head coach. So we took the roots of it all, right? But then we started using formations and things like that to create better matchups, all while, really having the same goal in mind. That's to run the ball down people's throats. Something that I think was huge for us in that is We wanted to be able to invest in something that wasn't going to take a ton of time to teach. But something that we could do well to expand the defense so they weren't so hunkered in the box against us. So we really started by going in on perimeter screens with it. Started investing a lot into bubbles and things like that so that we were making the defense have to defend the whole field instead of just this small box, which is the small box I kind of grew up in. We were one formation team growing up, and it allowed people to load the box and always come up with a different defense that week to play us. So it's very hard to prepare for what we were going to see because somebody always built a random defense that they don't normally run to play against us. So we wanted to keep everybody in their base defense. And the way we do that is by formations, throwing screens well, doing those things all while having run plays tagged to them. And it's just manipulating matchups and finding ways to put our kids in the best position to be successful. On the defensive side of the ball, we're not very big size-wise at Dallas. So the last thing I want to do is line my kids up in a forefront and have them in gaps where the O-line can tee off on them, right? So we started playing smaller D linemen. Originally, it was because that's what we had. We didn't have an option, right? And what am I going to do? Put that kid that's 160 pounds in the B gap and let him get double teamed by two 250-pound linemen? No, that's just not good coaching, right? So what we really started doing is focusing on using a lot of slanting and movement with smaller guys. Sometimes we move our D linemen further off the ball to give them space to work. But all offense and defense, it's manipulation. Everybody has rules on offense and defense. They have rules. So when you scout an opponent, you can see if we line up in this gap or here, this is who's going to block you on their best run play, right? So how can we do that, manipulate their blocking rules, and then use some movement with smaller guys to kind of negate what they're trying to do? And so defensively, we have a very unique approach. We base out of a 3-3-5. Our boxes, we have some really good linebackers. So I will say we definitely have some traditionally good linebackers. But our D linemen I will play a smaller guy any day of the week that can be aggressive, attack, slant. Maybe he's lined up in the C gap, then he's going to long stick to the A. We're going to loop a backer behind him. We want to be pressuring on defense. We want to control what the offense is doing. We don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to line up in the same spot every play. We want to do things that are unorthodox and give our kids a chance to be successful with what they have. We can't control their genetics, and neither can they. So how do I take the kids I have and put them in a position to be successful? Right? And also, how do I make that offensive coordinator on the other team have a hard week to prepare for us? So we use a lot of different packages on defense and on offense. We really try to get as many kids involved as possible because I think it creates more buy-in. So we have small front, big front, DB, we have lots of different packages and, trying to get as many kids involved, but also put our kids in the best position to be successful. Sometimes on 3rd and long, I'll line up with 6 DBs and 5 linebackers, no D linemen, and we're just going to use speed on the front, speed on the rush. We're going to twist, do things a little unconventional up front, and then put our secondary in the best position to be successful behind them, and really teach our kids what's going to happen. So as a DB, we're a pressure defense, right? So if we're doing the job and our kids are executing the rush properly, that ball is going to come out quick. And so teaching our kids how to understand, in the back end of it, in the secondary, hey, the ball's going to be out quick. Here's his first read, here's his second read. Let's make sure we take care of those guys and force him to have to go through his full progression and give our rush the ability to hit home, So sometimes we gamble, and it sometimes gets us in a bad spot. But I'm willing to gamble to give my kids a chance to be successful, no matter what. And I'm smart enough to understand that there are oftentimes better players on the other team, than maybe what we have. And I'm not willing to look at my kid and say, hey, well, it is what it is. They're going to beat us this week. No, I'm going to get those kids bought into the game plan. Here's how we're going to be successful. This is what we're going to do, okay? And it's going to give you this great opportunity to help your team and make a play on it. And I think that's part of why we've had as much defensive success as we've had over the last few years. And I've gotten great buy-in by my players, and really fortunate to kind of stumble upon that, which, like I said, it's an unconventional way of doing things. But in general, my approach is I'm a contrarian. I am very unconventional in what we do, and I embrace that. Our kids embrace it. We want to be a handful for people. We want, when people play Dallas, to, on both sides, offensively and defensively, be like, okay, guys, this is going to be a different week than what we're used to, So
when I was at Boise State, and then actually last year, so I played Air Force 3 times. So I know exactly what your opponent is thinking, because it's a pain in the
Oh,
ass to get ready for them, to scout them, to make sure all the coaches are on the right verbiage, make sure the coaches understand it before the players understand it, and then we have to try and make the scout team replicate it, and then the scout team always runs about 75% up to the speed that it happens in the game, and everything just hits fast, and now they're going unbalanced, now they're going tackle over.
And we do a ton of
Now
that.
they're spinning guys. Where are safety's eyes? Are they freaking cross keying? Are they keying the wing guy to their side?
Yeah.
It's
Great.
It's not a fun team to play.
No, but we're a big unbalanced team. We'll line up and stuff, and the good thing about what we do offensively is we always have a tight end and wing attached no matter what. We typically play with a running quarterback, so we'll run him a lot. We'll get into unbalanced sets where we have a tight end wing, and then on the same side we have trips bunch. So we've got all 5 guys on one side. We've taken out the outside linebacker. We've taken out a safety. We've taken out a corner because now we got a bubble screen out there to the trips, and we've taken out their forced defender, and then we're going to run off tackle right at that side. So it's just giving our kids a chance to kind of put themselves in a position to be successful. And as coaches, we really have to understand our opponent's rules. What are their defensive rules? How are they going to align? If we present a slot receiver, is the overhang going to go out with him? So I think that's a big part of our preparation for our coaches is really understanding what our opponent's trying to do, and then build our game plan to put our kids in the best position to be successful. But to what you said about the scout team, sometimes, and it's often, we'll watch during warm-ups a team run our offense and the scouts run, and I'll just sometimes tell our players, hey, look at this. They are struggling to do what we're doing, okay?
Oh, it's on you quick.
Oh,
now.
it's on. It's on. And so I kind of enjoy watching that. And I remember as a little kid watching teams try to run the double wing as a scout offense before games. And you could kind of tell this is going to be a good night for us.
No doubt. Obviously, what's Pop's name?
Tracy Jackson.
Tracy Jackson. I know Pops is a great influence for you. Aside from Pops and aside from college coach Arnie Ferguson, who have been some of your greatest influences within the coaching world or outside the coaching world?
Well, I'd say in the coaching world I'm a big fan of our opponents. The people you've had on here are people that I watched intently. Justin Stark, Thurston. I'm a huge fan of what he's done. He's knocked us out in the quarterfinals, I think 3 times. So we've ran into him multiple times. And I just love his approach and the way he runs his program. Adam Gunther. We haven't competed with Wilsonville, but I watched tons of film of him, and I see what he's doing, and I've listened to some of his clinics and things like that. I'd say outside of coaching, my wife, I would say, is a big one. She's been huge for me in my development and just been there for me, unconditionally. So her and, I'm not the guy that when we play somebody, I'm like, I hate these guys. No, I'm a fan of other people and what they're doing. Obviously, we want to beat them when we play them, but I am constantly reflecting and observing on other coaches and programs and what they're doing. And, like I said, I'm a huge fan of a lot of them. So defensively, I would say somebody who kind of helped me without him knowing he was helping me, but would be Shad Hetlett from Illinois. I've studied his school, Glen Bard West, since I became a coach 12 years ago. And they had that unconventional approach, based out of an odd front. So, I'm a big clinic guy. I love going and listening to people talk. I can take so much away from it, whether it's schematics or the way they build their culture, team, any of that. So, we are constantly learning from others and getting as much, I wouldn't say opinions, but just hearing different approaches and seeing different things. And as a coach, my job is to continue to grow, year in, year out. Because you're doing this podcast, I'm going to take a ton out of it. I already have, right? So just listening to other people, whether it's a volleyball coach, a softball coach, or football coach, I think that's a big deal. Is I never want to get to the position where I believe I know everything. Okay, that's going to be a bad spot to be in if I get there. Just constantly learning from others. Number 1, like I said, would be my dad. Then number 2, Arn Ferguson, head coach at Western. So those are my 2 biggest ones. And then just watching other programs and what they do.
Oh, that's a great answer, Coach. I love the humility to be able to look across the field and someone that you've gone up against and competed against, and maybe you've been on the lesser side for that given day, and then you still being able to swallow that, and then how can I learn from this? How can we grow from this process? So that's awesome. Wanted to ask you just a little bit about your approach to establishing a culture. If there's anything, you talked about being non-traditional. If there's anything unique to what you guys do at Dallas that you feel really really aids that process and helps develop team culture or whatever your culture wants to stand
That's
for.
great questions. Growing up and seeing it, like part of rebuilding programs that my dad was doing was culture had to be number one. He had to get the buy-in in the day-to-day, the way he wanted for it to continue to grow or to get better. So knowing that when I came in as a head coach, I knew that culture has to be attended to every day. And it has to be nurtured every day. And you can't come up with these sayings if you're not going to emphasize them daily. Everybody's got these acronyms, but how often are you talking about that stuff? So culture is a day-to-day thing, and it has to be attended to every day. In our program, we really focus on being great at what we can control, right? So what can you control? Well, there's two things that we're always coming down to. And if you look at the signs over on the other side of the room, you kind of see them everywhere. But we have to have great attitude every day, okay? Every day we have to have great attitude. And no matter what, you always go full speed. Your effort, okay, can never be in question, And we talk about those two things daily. You could quiz any of my kids on it from the last 7 years, and they're going to tell you immediately attitude and effort. That's what we're focused on. And then we do have a saying that we say every day, and we break on it every day, and that's attack the day. So ATD is written on all of our gear. I think you can see it right behind me on the wall. Attack the day, right? And that's in anything you're doing, okay? So schoolwork, relationships, practice, you want to attack every opportunity God gave you, and you want to do it with great attitude and effort. So, we talk about, I wouldn't say I talk to the kids, hey, this is our culture. Well, no, we're talking about attitude and effort every day. We're talking about attacking your opportunities. Attack the opportunity you've been given. Attack it with great attitude and great effort. And that is a day-to-day thing. It's not something that we hang on the walls, okay, and just go about it randomly or when it's convenient. No, everything boils down to attacking your opportunity and doing it with great attitude and great effort. And the kids hear that every single day. And we always break. I say ATD, the kids say attack the day. Then they hug 3 teammates. So we hug 3 teammates after everything. And sometimes I'll see if one of my captains will take that on. I'll break and walk away and just kind of wait to see if one of my kids is like, hey, hug 3 teammates. And they've really bought into that. And I would say culture, it's you can say a lot about it, but really what culture boils down to is if some random person came and watched us play, or watched us practice, or watched us go through a team meeting, would they know what our culture is without me saying it to them? Would they know what we're about without me saying it to them? So, it's something that has to be nurtured daily. You have to attend to it daily. And what you allow is what you become. So if you're allowing those things to happen, if you're allowing kids to not do things properly, then that's exactly what we're going to turn into. And so my dad had this saying that I have too, and I'm a pretty loud coach, but I wouldn't say that I'm yelling at kids. I'm loud in the way I coach. I'm passionate in the way I coach. But there are 2 ways to get yelled at in our program by coaches, and that is treating a teammate poorly or giving poor effort. And I've been hearing that since I was 3 or 4 years old. So that's one of the things I took from him. I think there's a lot of good in that. We don't want to be yelling at kids. When kids make mistakes, they know they screwed up. They know it. So we're going to really try to focus on building them back up, getting them ready for the next play, because the next play is the most important play. It's the next play, right? And if we berate a kid for screwing up, and we're chewing his ass in front of everybody for screwing up on a play, and when I say that, I mean on a play, he's not going to make the next play, okay? He's not going to be focused on what he needs to do the next play. You get beat all the time. Every day you get beat at practice. Every day you get beat in a game. You could win a game by 50 and get beat on multiple plays throughout that game individually, right? Those things are going to happen. So it's just really important that we're staying focused on our attitude and effort and making sure that we're building kids up in a really positive way. And yes, we do coach loud, but it's not ever really with the intent of singling a kid out to embarrass him. There have been times where if a kid treated a teammate poorly, then yeah, I'm going to lose it. And that kid's going to know, and everybody's going to know how unacceptable that is. Or if we have a kid give really poor effort. And I'll say by attending to those things and being true to those things and letting the kids know, here's the expectation. They need to know what the expectation is. Here's the expectation. And if you walk out of that line, it's going to be unacceptable. It really is, I hope that answered it. I know I kind of beat around a little bit on that, but it's all about attacking opportunities, having great attitude, having great effort, and understanding that, you're going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes. all of us coaches are going to make mistakes, but, can we reset ourselves and understand that the most important play is the next play?
I like it, Coach. I like it. Advice to younger self.
Focus on the process more than the outcome. Understand that you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, right? But understand that when you're thrown obstacles, you can't sulk about it. You have to understand that that's an opportunity to grow and to learn. As hard as it could be, it's an opportunity to grow and learn. And ultimately, this is a long process, right? My job, I hope to do this for as long as I could possibly do it. But it's just about my process and my growth as a human. And understanding that you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. Don't focus on the outcome, focus on the process. And as a young coach, I was more consumed in the outcome than I was the process. And also, like you and I talked before this started, I kind of thought I knew everything coming in. I, played safety like you did in college, had a good understanding of the game, grew up with a dad as a head coach my whole life. I thought I knew more than I did. And so once I opened my ears up and my eyes up to learning from others and observing others and also making adjustments and changes in myself, that's when the great things started happening. And we always tell our kids in the program, like, hey guys, we're worried about today and that's it. That's it. So if we're worried about each day making the most of it and attacking it, down the road, the future outcomes are going to be better, right? So we're not looking at game 1 or game 9 or any of that. It's like, no, we have a workout at 8 o'clock this morning, okay? What are we going to do today to make the most of the day, right? That's all that matters. That's all that's in your control. If you start looking too far down the road, then you're going to lose sight of what's most important. What's most important is the rep you have in front of you, the workout you have in front of you, and developing great relationships with your teammates today. That's what's most important. So the outcomes will take care of themselves if you focus on the process. And when it comes game week, we really try to keep our kids focused on daily goals, right? Yes, you have a game on Friday. Here's what the goal is for us to do today to be successful, And sometimes Monday is not always the cleanest looking day. Tuesday gets a little bit better. Wednesday gets a little bit better. Thursday, we should be humming. Friday, we go attack our job. But we tell the kids, you win the games Monday through Thursday, not Friday. You win games during the summer. You do it not on the game day. Like, your preparation is what's going to put you in a great position to be successful. And the best way to prepare is to just focus on what is directly in front of you.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that. And I'm just paraphrasing the quote, and I can't remember where it's from, but I just came across it again just recently. What they're talking about, the gentleman was talking about, if you ever want to predict your future, just look at your daily habits and what you're doing now. And that's kind of what it's going to happen. But exactly what you're talking about, like, you got to focus on your process and not focus on the outcome.
That's a great quote.
But also maybe think, I was talking to Coach Vaughn, the DC at Linfield, and the head softball coach at Linfield, and I asked him that, the same question, advice to your younger self, and he's like, said something along the lines like, I'm not going to tell myself to avoid these mistakes or to watch out for these things. He's like, because exactly what you said, it's like I had to go through that in order to get to where I'm at now. So I'm not going to tell myself, hey, let's avoid this. Like, he's like, so he had a really good answer, and I loved his perspective on it. He's like, yeah, I am the way I am now because of, the fuck ups and the mess ups that I had early on in my career. So I'm not going to go back and tell myself to, hey, avoid that. Like, I think exactly like you're saying, any adversity, any obstacles that you're going through, if the result's undesired, like you said, it's going to help you grow more than,
sure.
If you had a good outcome.
And I believe you really need to own it.
Situation.
You got to own your failures. You have to. And for me, and our coaches, like, when we don't go out and perform well, that's on me, man. Like, I got to own those things, good or bad, and I need to learn from them. If I just tuck it away and like, okay, we'll be ready next week, we're going to do exactly the same thing, but we'll get it next week. No, like, we constantly have to be self-reflecting on what we're doing. Self-reflection is one of the best ways to grow possible, man. Being aware of what you're doing and the result of what you did, good or bad, and learning from it. I truly believe, like, for myself, one of my best skill sets is I believe that I'm self-aware. Like, I understand when things are going well, and I also reflect on and acknowledge when things don't go well, and I need to adjust it. And so I think that's just a huge tool for being successful, is owning your mistakes and then putting into action how you're going to fix that thing. But like, as far as going as a team goes, the kids have to know we're all in this together. I've got a job, they got a job, right? If I don't deliver on my job, then I need to own up to that. Okay. And I need to make sure that they know that they're not out there by themselves. They're out there with their brothers, their teammates, and our coaches. All of us have shared responsibility, shared leadership together to get the results that we'd like to have. And making adjustments and just, constantly trying to evolve. But I never want my kids to feel like they let me down. No, they need to know that we are in this together. And if we falter and we go out and don't perform maybe the way we need to, that's on me, So the preparation and everything, yeah, those kids are the ones out there playing the game, but I'm the one that prepares them. My assistant coaches are the ones that prepare them. And because those kids have great attitude and effort, if we don't perform well, it's on me. When the kids go out and play great football, that's on them. So I want to make sure that our kids and our program knows that we're all in this together. And never will I throw my kids under the bus. Never. So, I have to take ownership of the group.
Yeah. Gave you a heads up before we hopped on. My daughter had a question, vanilla question of the day. It was, what is your favorite game to play?
Okay. Great question, and it's changed over time. Like I said, I have two boys that during the summer I get to see a ton, and I just value that relationship so much. And we were really apprehensive about getting a Nintendo Switch for my oldest son, but we went on a limb and did it. And, playing Mario Kart on Nintendo Switch right now with my son that is, in my mind, as far as games go, the funnest one,
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty hard to beat. Takes me back to the Super Smash Bros. Days on the old Nintendo 64 and playing Mario Kart on top there.
And that's the other game.
A little nostalgic.
Smash Bros. But it's fun sharing in something like that with my child. So I'm a pretty simple guy. I either want to be with my family in doing something or with my team in doing something. I golf quite a bit, but I love it. Golfer too?
Trying to be. I PR'd yesterday at Tristan Tree.
Hey,
so
there you go. Good for you, man.
Yeah.
I got really into it during COVID, and then I realized that my assistants liked it, my brother. So, I don't want to go out and golf by myself, but I think that's a great tool for us as a staff to go out and share those experiences and things like that. But, really, if I'm not with my family, then I want to be with my team. And outside of that, I don't have a bunch of interest. Pretty simple, and you get what you get.
Speaking about team, what does the word team mean to you?
Team's a special thing, man. So I truly believe that, like we talked about earlier, buying into being a part of a team is one of the best things young men can do to grow for their future. What a team looks like is when you get a bunch of kids coming from different backgrounds of families coming together to work for one common goal, and understanding that the person next to them is more important than themselves. So my dad's had this saying that I think it came from John Wooden, but when selfishness ends, that's when happiness begins. So, and I believe team is you have to be unselfish. You have to understand that, yes, you're putting in as much effort as you can and focusing as you can to do something that's going to help benefit all these other kids. Not about what you can get out of it. It's what is going to help the group be successful. And you have to be unselfish, and you have to have great relationships with your team, and the kids have to have great relationships to have a great team. I feel like teams that win in the playoffs are teams that are so afraid to not be able to see their buddies anymore. They'll do whatever it takes so that they can play with their friends more. And those, I believe, are the teams that end up, going on the best runs is when you have that great chemistry, when you're willing to do whatever it takes, okay, whatever it's going to take to help your brother next to you be successful. When we get that type of buy-in and we're not worried about what each individual can get out of it, that's when we have the opportunity to be special. And something that I'm always on our kids about is celebrating. When you score or when you make a great play on defense, you guys got to celebrate as a team. You don't individually celebrate. And I get really worked up when I see players on the field not celebrating what their teammate just did, right? I have an issue with individual celebrations and putting yourself out there and, all that. Team celebrating, that's awesome. And we coach that up all the time. And we'll watch practice film, and, we watch film every day before practice, and it's mostly of practice. We watch practice film and we see kids not celebrating together. We're addressing that. You need to love to celebrate with your team. You need to love when your teammate does great stuff, and you need to be the first one there to fist bump him and get excited. Just like running backs, when our running backs come back, and man, we've had some good ones over the years. Tanner Earhart, who phenomenal. I mean, state player of the year, all that. One thing he did a really good job of that I've stolen from is he always would come back and pat the O lineman on their butts. Always building the lineman up. It's the 10 other guys that don't have the ball that makes it happen. So we could give anybody the ball, and if the other 10 guys do the job right, they're going to have a chance to score. So having that team unity, that, hey, we're getting excited together type of a thing, I think is also a very, very vital component of having a great team. So everybody willing to do what it's going to take for the other person to be successful, and they're going to celebrate when individuals on the team have success. They're going to celebrate together.
No, that's a great answer. And it made me think of, one thing, a drill that we did at Oregon State, and I can't remember exactly all of it until, but it was a pursuit drill, and it was a 3-part pursuit drill. So you're splitting the defense in half. The first thing to it, and you got rabbits. It's a perimeter screen. I can't remember what the second thing is, but everyone's pursuing to the ball. And then the third and final thing is it's drop back pass, and it's a deep interception to one of the DBs, and then everyone's got to kind of turn and block the nearest receiver or block the intended receiver, find the quarterback, and then the DB takes it all the way to the end zone, and then the defense on both sides are in the end zone and doing some stupid celebration, but they're celebrating together and they're practicing celebrating, which is, when you were talking about that, it was one thing that kind of popped in my head. It's like, yeah, it's a pursuit drill, but on the third leg of this pursuit drill, everyone's practicing their transition, going from defense to offense. Now we're trying to score the ball, and then they're celebrating during practice.
Yeah, that's
which is cool. Yeah. If I had tape on it, I don't got tape on it, but if I had tape on it, I'll make sure to send that over.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I really.
Is there anything that you do, with team building, any exercises or any fun activities that you do that you feel goes a long way with, establishing buy-in?
Oh, yeah. So like most teams, we go to team camp. Team camp, I take their phones, and they know that going in, right? So we're going to not have our phones during camp. They get to have them for 15 minutes a day to call home or whatever, but then the phones are with the coaches the rest of the time. And we do, last year at team camp, we had this NCAA tournament in the mat room where we were sleeping. I really value seeing the kids operate in an environment that not everyone operates in now, in having to be able to communicate, talk like normal human beings without having your phone. You get to see new relationships being built amongst teammates, and when we do dinners, we always sit at different tables, and trying to make sure that we're getting all the different kids around each other and getting to know each other. And then I think this is a small thing, but I think it's really paid off for us, is the hugging your teammates and telling them you love them. So after every practice, we hug 3 teammates. We have kids that tell each other they love them. We have kids that go up in front of the team during team meetings or before games and have the opportunity to talk about what the team means to them. And I just think, I'm not rewriting the book on it. I wouldn't say that I have this crazy cool approach to it. I feel like just doing different things like that. We also do community service and getting our kids together as much as possible in a position where they can communicate and work on stuff together, whether it's football related, whether it's cleaning up the pathway down at the creek in town or doing yard work for a lady in town that needs it. More of those opportunities is a big deal. And, I'm a big guy in getting pizza for the kids and having as many opportunities as we can to kind of sit down and after practice or whatever and have a quick meal together. I think that stuff goes a long ways. And I think as a coach, you constantly need to be observing the way they interact with each other, right? And seeing, how are we coming together as a unit? Like, how are people communicating with each other? I think the more opportunities you do that's outside of the game with them, the better it's going to be as far as getting a team to come together. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's some crazy approach, but we try to attend to those things daily, get kids talking with each other, telling each other they love each other, and coaches give each other that, or coaches are always talking about that with their kids, and I'll tell the kids all the time I love them, and that's real. Like it's something that I believe not everybody's into, but like I'm totally willing to be vulnerable with them, let them know how I feel about them. I want them to do the same with each other, and I want them to hug me, and I really want that connection that we can have, and then it makes it so much funner when we go to battle together, because like we talk about being a team, right? Well, you have to truly care about that person next to you to really buy into that and to be unselfish. You have to care about them. Because otherwise you're out there for yourself. And in our program, like, we can't have individuals. Like, it's not about what you're going to get out of this. It's how can you service your team and your brothers? And how much do you care about making that guy next to you successful?
I think it's cool that you're talking about how you guys, after the break, everyone, responsible, you got to give 3 hugs. There was a great coach when we were at Boise State, and that's one thing I loved about when I was at Boise State. Our head coach at the time would bring in a lot of outside voices, a lot of other coaches to kind of come in and, talk about who they were, what they stood for, their philosophy. And then there was a tennis coach who I'm going to go look up his name after this, who longtime tennis coach at Boise State. And then he comes in and he's like stomping and clapping, and he was talking about, and I'm trying to remember this, but he was talking about how we as athletes and we as people have always been tribal beings in the sense that, and then when he came in clapping and stomping, that what he was doing, he was trying to set up a synchronization within the room. And he was talking about how we all on the same wavelength, all in the same sound wave, and how, we're connected in so many different ways. But one of the other things he emphasized was talking about touches, right? Shakes, patting someone on the back, hugs, and how that was imperative for people to not only, you can say, be a part of a team, but to reaffirm it and to confirm it by, hey, you're with me, and bringing someone in, like exactly what you're doing, hugs, touches, and how that is such a force multiplier for people, feeling sort of connectedness or belonging to a group. Yeah. So that just made me think about that coach, because he was awesome. He was an older gentleman, and before he said anything, he literally did that. He literally did that before he said anything. He was doing the beat of "We Will Rock You." So it was pretty cool.
Well, that's cool.
Anyway, sorry.
Because sometimes, I know that we are a little different in the way we do stuff. It's really cool to hear what you're saying about that, and like, hey, that is something that's a really big deal. Like, and I'm not crazy for thinking that. That's something that goes a really long ways. So
after a tough loss or tough setback, what does that communication look like to the team? How do you bounce back?
I love you guys. I didn't get you guys prepared maybe as well as we needed to. I know how much this hurts, and that's shared. As a family, this hurts. And those are really great opportunities for kids to come together more, is when you go through those really tough experiences. But the kids always need to know that I'm taking ownership of it. They know that they also need to take ownership of it. And we talk about those things. But when you take a tough loss, the worst thing I could do is berate my kids and bring them down more. Now, when we get to film on Monday, we can look at those things that got us into the position we were in. But when they're in that vulnerable spot, when they're hurting because they've invested so much into this, and last year when we got knocked out, kids crying everywhere, and they need to know that we're in this together. And post-game, right after game, that's not the right time to be talking about the schematical mistakes or technique mistakes. That's our time to understand that, hey, we support each other here. We love each other here. We're all in this together. And just like those kids are going to do, I'm going to make sure, and our assistant coaches are going to make sure, that we do whatever we can to not feel this again soon. And so they need to know that they're loved. They need to know that we're all in it together, and they need to know that, like anything that happens in life, you're given an opportunity to grow right now. And is it fun? No, at this moment it's not fun. This is going to be something that makes us better, not only as a team, but as young men, in overcoming this. And we will overcome it, and they need to know that, guys, we are going to get this thing fixed. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes you do just get beat by a team better than you, and that's okay. So just like anything, we're going to get back to work. We're going to be positive. We're going to make sure that, like, hey, on Monday we're going to look at this stuff, but then we're going to build them up mentally and make sure that they know, hey, we're going to get this right. We believe in you, okay? I believe in myself. I believe in my assistants. This whole ship is going in the right direction. So we can't get too crazy about stuff either, Sometimes, like I said, you lose to a team that might be better than you. And it doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong. Okay? It doesn't. It doesn't mean that you need to change up a bunch. But you do need to know that we're all in this together. We all own this together. And we're all going to move forward together.
One of the quotes that I love is, leaders are dealers of hope. I think that's so essential. But at the same time, I think I've seen it throughout my coaching career where I've had self-doubt. I've had maybe some uncertainty. So how do you do that as a coach when you're going through maybe some of those phases yourself, but you can never transmit that onto the players?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something you really need to be intentional about in the way that your body language is and how you go about the time you have with the kids. Because, like you said, great leaders inspire hope, right? And so, maybe, go through a tough one, and during the weekend, I'm beating myself up a little bit, and looking at, hey, what did I do wrong here? How did I lead them wrong in this situation or whatever? But you also have to have faith and trust in yourself and understand that God put you in this position for a reason. And you are, it's easy to get down on yourself, especially when you're aware of yourself and reflect on it. And especially when you own that as a coach, which we all should, right? We should all own those things that happen, whether it's a loss or whatever, and you got to look at yourself first, right? But I only have a very little bit of time to sulk about that. And then I immediately need to be looking at myself before my team. So what do I need to improve on, and what do I need to learn right now? And then after I come to that and put that into action, what my plan is, then it's what do we got to get the kids to do, right? It's so important to me on Monday that when I see the kids in the morning, regardless of whether we came off a win or we came off a loss, is that I am letting them know I love them. I'm fist bumping them. I'm being positive, focusing on what's ahead of us and not constantly going back on maybe what happened on Friday. Now, once we get to that team meeting, we're going to talk about the goods in the bads, and then we're going to kind of look at some film and some things that we got to get cleaned up. But it's so important to me that whenever I leave a conversation with my team, that they leave in a positive way. We finish in a positive way, no matter what. I never want those kids going home feeling like we ended in a negative manner. I want them to always be positive, but it's a tricky thing, what you're saying, as far as going through self-doubt, because we all do it. We all question ourselves. If you're doing the job the right way, I think, then, when you take ownership of it, you are going to reflect, and that can be tough at times. But just like anything, you're going to be thrown obstacles and adversity. We've been doing it our whole life, where we've had to overcome things. And you truly have to believe in yourself, in your preparation, and know that, hey, we're going to get this thing right. And it's not something that we can allow to own our brain, because if you allow it to own your brain too much and you get too negative, moving forward in the right way is going to be tough. And understanding that it's all about the process. And during the process, the kids and the coaches are going to struggle at times. How do we keep ourselves moving, staying positive, so that long-term outcome, we can still get there? And so understanding that tough things are part of the process. And as coaches, we're going to make mistakes. Hopefully not huge ones, but we're going to make mistakes, right? And we have such a big role because we are the leader of that group. And some of our kids don't have fathers or come from split homes, and we have such a big role as a coach to help develop young men and lead them in the right direction, inspire hope in them. So it's so important that as a coach, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you are around the kids, you're always showing confidence, you're always positive, because they need to see that. They need to understand that you believe in them and that we're all going to get this thing right. So you can't really allow it to own you too much. And if it starts affecting the way that you operate around them, because maybe you're going through a little bit of personal doubt or something in your life, that's an issue. You got to make sure that time you have with those kids, you're inspiring and leading them in the right direction. Because for some of them, you are their main figure.
Yeah. Got one final question before we kind of conclude this thing. Talk to me about how you structure practice.
Love it. Great question. So here's a day-to-day at Dallas during the season. School gets out at 3:30. We meet in my classroom at 3:35 to watch film. So either watching our practice or, if it's Monday, we're watching last game, or we're watching our opponent. We focus more on practice film because we worry about ourselves, not our opponent. Obviously, you need to be aware of your opponent, what they do, and who their better kids are, and what they're trying to get accomplished. But we focus really, number one, on Dallas football. We're more interested in getting our kids better and focusing on what we can control, and that's us, not our opponent, right? So we watch film each day, 3:35 to 3:50. Then the kids go get changed, and then they meet out on the field. We start like most teams do with specialists, and then we go straight to our dynamic warm-up. And then we do something kind of unique. We do fundamental circuits every day. So when we first started the rebuild at Dallas under my dad, we knew that maybe we had a lot of work to do, right? So we had to focus on what we can control. Well, we can control how fundamentally sound we are, how well we tackle, how well we block, how well we get off blocks. And so We started doing circuits a long time ago, and we do 6 different stations. They go for about 2 minutes each, and we do that daily. So it's about a 15-minute period total. And during that, we're focusing on blocking, tackling, getting off blocks, perimeter blocking. We kind of do it differently each period based on the position that we have. So like if we're doing defensive back groups in it, then we're focused more on open field tackling. Right? And then if it's D lineman, it's tackling kind of in the box, a little bit closer. So we kind of adjust to each one. You know, if we're doing blocking stuff and it's a receiver running back, we're going to do stock blocking. Right? If it's lineman, it's going to be sled. So we try to really focus on being great at the fundamentals because that's what we can control. And we've won many games with lesser athletes because we were more disciplined and we tackled better and we blocked better. And so I'm really into that because no matter what type of kid I have each year, I know that we're going to spend a ton of time on those things and we will be great at those things. So after that, we go into offensive indies. Then we do run pods, which are like, you know, since we are a wing T based run game, you know, we'll take our guards with our running backs and we'll work their paths on our main plays with the guard kicking and pulling so that the running backs get that group period where they're feeling running behind a pulling guard. And after that, we go to pass under pressure. So we always try to put our kids in the toughest position during practice. So we don't really just do team pass periods where nobody rushes. We're usually always doing it against a rush. So we go pass under pressure, then we go team. Now during team, it's usually situationally based. So if it's a 20-minute team period, we're going to spend about 10 minutes on general offense and then 10 minutes on a specific situation that we're working that day. Could be third and long, could be goal line short yardage stuff, but we're really, really into situational team periods. We want to train our kids how to play in that scenario, right? So we're not really big on general offense or general defense. We do a few minutes of that, and then we immediately go into situational work. Between offense and defense, we do special teams. We do 2 of those a day, and we try to put our kids in a tough position on them. So when we do punt, we're always punting out of our end zone with the rush. You know, we're always trying to put our kids in a spot that could potentially hurt us if we're not prepared well, right? So, you know, then we go defense, we go D-indies. Then we go group defense. That could be perimeter run defense, could be 7-on-7, could be inside run. Normally during that time we have 2 groups going. So we have an inside run group down there and a 7-on-7 or perimeter defensive group over here. And then we'll flip-flop some of those kids that are interchangeable. Like inside linebackers need to be in inside run. They also need to do perimeter run fits. You know, we're really big into one-on-ones and competition. So there's a form of one-on-ones every day. Usually it's 2-on-2s so we can get more kids reps. But we want to put our kids in the fire each day. Like, you're going to be out in front of everybody, and you're going to have to get used to that, and you got to have to perform in that. So I'm a big believer in one-on-ones, huge. Whether it's lineman or DB receiver, putting them in a spot where they're out in front of everybody, and they've got to perform, and they've got to do their job. After one-on-ones, then we go to our perimeter or pursuit drill. We call it dragon drill. It's a very unique pursuit drill. Actually, I just spoke on it, or the last clinic I spoke at, that was a big part of it on defense, and that's where I got a lot of emails from people that were there. It was about, hey, how do you set that up? But it's a unique pursuit drill that we do, and we do it at the beginning of every team period. So it gets us kind of, once we get into team, kind of moving and going together and understanding really that pursuit is what's going to win us on defense, right? I can draw up stunts and we can do all those things, but it's going to boil down to those 9 other guys getting to the ball. You know what I mean? So every day we're in team, we start with our pursuit drill. Then we go general team defense. Just one sec. My son's out. One sec. This is Keanu. This is my son Parks. And then this is my son Drew. Drew just got a hair dye because he's going to vacation Bible school today, and it's a crazy hair day, so he'll be heading there shortly. Boys, I'm almost done. Yeah, I'm almost done, okay? Love you, boys. So we're in the middle of talking about our team pursuit drill. We do that for about 3 minutes, and then we go to general team defense, and then we're in situational team defense. To me, that's really important that we're, like I said, training our kids how to play situations. It also helps our coaches out because we personnel package a lot. So when we get into like third and long, then we're going to be in our speed group was what I call it, which is basically all linebackers on the front and then all DBs in the back. Now, for us to use personnel packages and do it well, we have to do those every day, right? So it really helps when you're focused on a situational team period to help get those things in play. So if it's short yardage offense, we're in our tank personnel grouping, which is basically double tight, heavy run game, downhill. Or if we're in a third and long period, then we're in our speed group for offense. We call it Lambo, and that's got more receivers on the field and things like that. So by doing situational periods, it helps us get in the habit of subbing personnel groups during practice. And then we usually do a little bit of conditioning. We condition more in the summer than we do in season. And when we do condition in season, it's usually earlier in the week, not later in the week, trying to save legs.
Yeah. Well, that's a good answer. Tell your boys I said hi. I didn't realize I was on mute, and I was over here trying to talk to them.
They're all good, man.
I was on mute the whole time.
Yeah,
No, that's good, Coach.
I'm looking at them over there, and one of them's messing with one of our weights, and so careful over there, Park.
No, very, very, very similar to what you were talking about, especially at Oregon State. You were talking about how you guys started it off after dynamic warm-up with kind of like a fundamental circuit. So very similar to what we did, but a lot of it we just kind of spun it as turn it into special team circuit. But a lot of it is block destruction, a lot of it is tackling, and there's just so many transferable movements that you're doing on special teams that you find yourself in positions with defense and offense. One of the things, both programs that I've been at with the football side of things, and that I love, that I think every team can do it, because everyone wants to start practice fast, and then we trickle it in, and we usually do it after our special teams circuit in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes before, when at Boise, we would do it to begin with right after dynamic. At Oregon State, it was kind of right after that special team circuit, especially if it's fall camp. But we called it red ball. At Boise, we called it NASCAR. So all you're doing is you're getting your 1 and 2, and they're getting 4 to 5 reps, where it doesn't matter the result of the play, but you're just moving in 5-yard increments. Mm-hmm. Or 10-yard increments, and you're going just as fast as you can. And I thought that was a good way, because now you're simulating a tempo offense, or you can simulate however you want to structure it with 2-minute drill. But just about getting the blood flowing, getting the guys to work fast and compete early on in practice. I always thought that was a good kind of igniter to set the tempo of practice. So I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah. There's one other thing that I do that we did with Tanner that was really unique, in that we were a double wing offense with Tanner. So most of the time he was getting through the defense without having to defeat or make somebody miss him, because we just had so many polars, and so we started playing like with 14-man defense. Now, we don't do that if we're passing the ball, because it really throws off the reads for the quarterback.
No doubt.
But when we're in a running period on offense, we're putting out extra safeties so that if we get everybody picked up, which we should, in our offense, we pull guys all the time. We should always outnumber people by 1 at the point of attack. But at least now our running back's got somebody to make him miss, right? And putting our kids...
I like that.
It's all about putting kids in bad spots.
So they're obviously, like you said, they're safeties. They're kind of elevated, so they're outside of the count. Right?
Correct, because we don't want to throw off our blocking rules. Like, I can't have 4 D linemen and then 5 linebackers in the box, because then it's going to mess up the rules of the kids, and they're going to think they have to block somebody they don't need to. So we have to set them back at like 8 or 9 yards, and then I'll stand behind the offense and literally tell the defense where it's going. So, like, I'll be behind the offense, and I'm going to point like right here, which is either, hey, I'm trying to get a guy to blitz into it, or I'm trying to get all those back end guys to get there as fast as possible. So our running back's got work that he can do, and Tanner was great at that. I think it was a huge reason why he had as much success as he did. And at Dallas, we've had some absolutely phenomenal running backs over the years.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's a good idea. Talk to me. Give me a quick synopsis on the pursuit drill, because one thing that you said that I thought was cool too was at Boise State, I believe what it was, whenever we would go to red zone, the defense, when they'd break from the sideline to run onto the field, they have to touch the opposite sideline, then get set up.
I love that. Because
we're always talking about, oh shit, if we're backed out, or if we're in the red zone, either we just gave up an explosive play. So that's almost like imitating, okay, we gave up an explosive, something bad happened, run down, touch the opposite sideline, then we get set up. Can you give me a quick synopsis on what your pursuit drill is before your team sessions?
So we have 4 position groups, right? We have our D linemen, which is 3 guys. We have our inside backers, which are 3 guys. Then we have our overhang strong safeties. We call them rover. That's 2. And then you have your single high safety and your 2 corners. I line up a bunch of kids in a line that are running backs or rabbits. And what I do is I get everyone set. I go down, everyone set. And then I go linebackers. And then the first running back goes. And only people pursuing are the inside backers. And they have to do it with their base leverage technique, right? Like, we have to be, for an inside backer, we're an inside out player, we're tracking the near hip. I do it like that so that everybody watches their effort, right? Everybody's watching that position group, because it's easy to hide when there's 11 guys in a pursuit drill running at one time. I want to isolate kids as much as possible in front of their teammates so that they have to do it the right way and they're getting coached hard on it. And then I'll immediately go like,
A little wrestling carryover there. A little wrestling carryover.
I go, linebackers, boom, they go. And then immediately I go, D-line, they go. And the back rabbit goes the opposite direction. And then I go, DBs, they go. And then rover. And it's different order each time. So I don't want the kids to cheat the drill. So I don't go linebackers, D-line, rovers, DBs in that order every time. I switch it up constantly. And then as we get better at it, I let the rabbits go wherever they want. They could go in the A-gap. Yeah. They could go to the same side the guy that went before him, whatever. And then we adjust that drill. And when I call those things out, I call them within 3 or 4 seconds. So it's literally down, linebackers, DBs, rovers, D-line. And what we're doing is creating a lot of traffic, kind of. We're putting everyone out with, they're working their base leverage in our base defense, but it gives us the ability to get going fast on defense for the beginning of team period. And then I adjust it where I let the rabbits go wherever they want to go. And then I'll also put out our different personnel packages based on how we would align if we were in that package. So we practice a lot end of half Hail Mary situations on defense. So at the end of team defense every day, we always end with 2 plays.
Have you been on the bad side of it? Is that why you practice it a lot? Have you?
At some point, I'm sure I have. But, those are things that you have to play differently, right? If you line up in base and your corner's at 7 yards when it's the last play of the game and it's a Hail Mary situation, we're putting them in a bad spot, right? So I do that so our kids learn how to align in that scenario and what they have to take care of. And then we do the pursuit drill from there. So now you got a safety that might be lined up at 20 yards, but he's still pursuing the rabbit with his base technique and base leverage. And so we'll do it based on packages, down in distance. If we're in our bear front, our short yardage package, I'll get us lined up as close to the line of scrimmage as we can in that call and then do the pursuit drill from there. So it's constantly an evolving drill as the year goes, but it's something that's been a staple of what we've done since we've been at Dallas. We've been doing that for 12 years. It's been a great pursuit drill. I get people asking about it a lot.
I think that's genius. Honestly, it's like you're doing a pursuit drill out of different packages. Because one, at least from what I experienced, you don't essentially practice the subbing. At least in the practice structures that I've been a part of, right? You're always put in that situation, and that defense, right, already knows they're going out from the sideline. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's just genius as far as what you're talking about. One, you get to practice your rotation and you're subbing a different subgroups, and then you could just hide that by, hey, we're doing a pursuit drill. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that's smart.
It's really good. I really obviously believe in it. And a while back when we started doing personnel packaging, we had an issue with substitution. We had 10 guys on the field, and that was because of my own fault for not practicing that more, for not getting the kids in that habit, for not having those position groups on the sideline next to their position coach ready to go. You can't just be all on the sideline. If we're on defense, I need my speed group right here next to this coach. You can't just go around wherever you want. No, you're right here and you're ready to go, and you know when I'm going to send you in. Okay, no, it's 30.
No, I like that. You just opened up a little new door for me there.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thank you.
I like that. Because every pursuit drill that we do, full defense pursuit drill, is okay, 1s, 2s.
Yeah.
I think it's just smart to do a different sub package. Then everyone's on their freaking toes, man. Everyone's on their freaking toes. And
that's the other thing, man. What you just said right there. I want my kids on their toes, knowing that any moment it's their moment to go in. And
that's game-like right there.
I don't want a kid in the back not paying attention, and then all of a sudden I call him or call the position group, and he's late to get out there. Because if I'm a player on the field and I see one of the guys getting subbed in and he's late coming on the field and he's in la-la land, that's not developing confidence in that group of people. They need to own that role, and it's how we get more kids involved in the game, more of our backups quality playing time, but they need to embrace it and be ready to go. And for me, I'm looking at the long-term process at Dallas, right? Every year I need to play a ton of kids because I always want to send back at least 20, 25 kids that have good varsity experience every year. I don't want to ever lose a group of seniors and be we're screwed. No, so it's very intentional throughout the season that we are playing some young kids in spots that doesn't hurt us. So I always play 3 or 4 sophomores on varsity. And then all those juniors that might not start, I'm going to find a role for you so that you are getting quality experience so that when this season's done, we return tons of kids that have played meaningful varsity experience. And I also believe that some of the best kids that we've had that have been state player of the year and stuff like that, they started as sophomores for us. And maybe they weren't quite like a baller yet, but they were getting great playing time. And oftentimes when you get a 3-year varsity guy, they're really in position to be a hammer when they're seniors.
That's awesome. I got to rock, Coach, but
Yeah,
I appreciate your time, man.
I've got to work out in
All
1 minute, so I got kids waiting out there. See you, dude. Thank you.
Go get them.
Yep.
Take care. Thank you.